My name is Natalie, and the day my life really started was the day my parents threw me out like trash, on my own birthday. That's right. The day most people count on to feel loved, celebrated, even a little spoiled. They made mine feel like a crime scene. I just finished a 12-hour shift at the grocery store. Feet aching, stomach growling, hands still smelling faintly of spilled coffee and produce. I'd imagined my birthday dinner in the smallest, quietest way. A cheap cupcake from the bakery, maybe some takeout if I could swing it. Nothing grand. Nothing anyone would notice. Just me, a little self-care, surviving like I always did. Pulling into my driveway, my car slowed as a weird weight pressed into my chest. That familiar anticipation. Birthdays always bring it, no matter how old you get, swirled with something else. And then I saw it, boxes. Oh, my laptop. A suitcase I hadn't packed. Plastic bins stuffed with textbooks. My life, piled on the lawn like someone had emptied the trash. Not carefully, not gently. Just stacked like I was nothing more than junk to be cleared away. And there they were. Mom, arms crossed, standing like a judge over a crime scene. Dad hovering behind her, silent, eyes on the ground until he finally muttered, "This is for your own good. You'll grow if you're pushed." Jenna, my little sister, lounging on the porch steps, phone in hand, smirk plastered across her face. "Everyone I know moved out ages ago," she said. "You should be thanking Mom." My hands shook. I held my cupcake like a shield. I wanted to scream, to throw the boxes back at them, to demand why the one day you're supposed to feel like people are glad you exist had been taken away. But the words caught in my throat. I was 26, technically an adult, technically supposed to handle this. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked quietly. Mom shrugged, almost bored. "You're an adult. Stay with a friend. Find something cheap. Just don't expect to come back. We need to turn your room into something useful." The word useful echoed in my skull. Useful. As if I'd never been. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't even cry. I picked up the first box, then the next, feeling the scrape of cardboard against concrete, the thud of everything I knew sliding into a beat-up car. The silence stretched over us like concrete. No party, no candles, no balloons. Just my life collapsing on the driveway and the faces of the people who were supposed to love me watching, unmoved, driving away. The rearview mirror reflected not just the house, but the life I thought I had. And somewhere between the sound of tires on asphalt and the faint, cold frosting of my cupcake, I made a choice. I would not go back. Not today. Not ever. I ended up at a run-down roadside motel. Half the neon sign burned out, the room smelled of old smoke and bleach, and the bed's comforter was scratchy and stained. But the key was mine. No one could tell me to leave. I sat on the edge of the bed, eating that cupcake alone, counting the small balance in my bank account that felt both terrifying and liberating. I almost called my mom, almost begged for a few days. But then I remembered the certainty in her eyes, the way they had packed me out without hesitation. I wouldn't be the one to give in, lying there, staring at a ceiling that had seen better days. I made a promise to myself. I would never beg to go back to a place that treated me like trash. If they wanted me gone so badly, they'd regret pushing me out. I didn't know how, didn't know when, didn't know if it would take years. But I knew one thing. The girl they threw out on her birthday wasn't done. Not even close. Years later, after I clawed my way back and finally bought my own home, they showed up at my front door, walked through my living room like they owned it, and calmly said, "This is a family asset. If you want to know how the girl who got kicked out on her birthday ended up owning the house they tried to steal, stay with me until the end." The morning after my birthday felt like waking inside someone else's nightmare. My neck was stiff, my head throbbed like a drum, and for the first time in my life I had no safety net. I picked up my phone half expecting a call from Mom, an apology, maybe even, "Hey, what hotel are you at? Maybe we overreacted." Nothing. Just a calendar notification blinking back at me. "Happy birthday, Natalie." As if some cruel app was mocking me. Unaware that my world had just collapsed, I had exactly one option. Get up. Shower in lukewarm water. Pull on my uniform like nothing had happened. And drive to work pretending my life hadn't been flipped upside down overnight. The grocery store was no different than usual, at least on the surface. I smiled at customers, scanned their items, made small talk about sales and recipes. But behind the counter my brain screamed, "You have nowhere to sleep tonight." By my first break, I was already scrolling through listings for rooms in Seattle, cheapest first. I filtered out anything that looked like a horror movie set, hoping against hope for something livable. The rents made my stomach twist, but the motel wasn't an option. Not long-termed by the end of that day, I had arranged to see a tiny studio in the city. It was everything I expected and nothing I wanted. Peeling paint, a view of a brick wall so close I could almost touch it from the window, cramped, overpriced. The landlord barely asked any questions, just took a deposit and handed over the keys. I signed with shaky confidence, not even knowing how I'd afford next month yet. The next few weeks became a brutal loop. I kept my grocery store job and picked up late-night shifts at a burger place a few blocks from my studio. My daily schedule was a grind so exhausting it barely felt real. Wake before sunrise, drive to work, scan groceries for 8 hours, grab a snack in the car, clock in at the burger place, smell like fries and grease until midnight, stumble home, shower, pass out. Repeat. No time to think about parents. And that was kind of the point. One night, as I was scanning items at the grocery store, a woman came through my line who changed everything. Monica Lee. I'd seen her before, always with a laptop bag and Bluetooth headset, talking about deadlines and investors. I didn't know exactly what she did, but she sounded important. That night she was distracted, scrolling through emails, and without thinking, I helped repack her items. Her reusable bag had ripped, so I taped it together, double-bagged the heavy stuff, and made a dumb joke about duct tape holding adult life together. She laughed, looked at my name tag. "You're the girl who always fixes the self-checkout, right?" I shrugged, embarrassed. It wasn't a big deal. I just punched buttons and reset machines when they froze. But she made it sound like surgery. Curious, she asked how long I'd worked there. Before I could stop myself, the story tumbled out in a stripped-down version. Parents kicked me out, 2 jobs, tiny apartment, no plan beyond survival. Instead of pity, she just stared. Then she said something that sounded insane. "You know, my startup is always looking for people who can problem solve and actually show up. You ever thought about tech?" I laughed. "Me? Tech? I hadn't even finished college." Monica told me about coding boot camps, how people switched careers without degrees, and all the free resources online. She wrote an email on the back of a receipt. "If you're serious about changing your life, send me a message. I can't promise anything, but I can point you in the right direction." That night, in my tiny studio, I sat at the little table with my laptop open. The words on the screen might as well have been another language. Free courses, beginner tutorials, boot camps in Seattle. But one thought wouldn't leave me. I had already lost everything once. What was the worst that could happen if I tried and failed again? I carved out pockets of time that didn't exist, watching JavaScript tutorials during lunch, printing cheat sheets and taping them above my thrift store desk, joining online communities. Slowly, things started clicking. Weeks later, I emailed Monica. Screenshots of messy websites I'd built by copying tutorials, tweaking line by line. She wrote back, not with a job offer but with a link to a part-time coding bootcamp. "If you get in and commit, I'll talk to my team about an internship." I applied, assuming I had no chance. Somehow I got in. The schedule was insane. Grocery store mornings, burger place on fewer nights, bootcamp evenings and weekends. My diet was ramen, black coffee, and occasional free meals from work. Friends stopped inviting me out. My answer was always, "I have to work or I have to study." There were dark nights. Error messages blurred my vision. My body ached, my brain burned, and I wanted to quit. But every time I thought about dropping out, I pictured the boxes on the lawn, Mom saying, "You'll thank us one day." If I was going to thank anyone, it would be for underestimating me. A year later I finished the bootcamp. Not a genius coder, but I could build things that worked. Monica set up an interview. I walked into a conference room in real clothes, no name tag, and shared my story. Problem solving from the grocery store, late night teamwork from the burger place, sheer grit from surviving it all while learning something completely new. They hired me. Junior front-end developer. Pay higher than both jobs combined. Clear path to grow. I stared at the offer email in my cramped studio, heart racing. The girl who hauled her life into a motel room on her birthday was now being asked to join a tech company in Seattle. I didn't cry. I didn't call my parents. I whispered to myself, "You threw me out to make room for Jenna and her future. You wanted me gone so badly. All you really did was give me the space to build my own." Starting at the startup was like stepping into someone else's movie. Glass walls, cold brew on tap, and people who spoke a language I barely understood. I felt like an imposter in my own life. Every day, I half expected someone to tap me on the shoulder, tell me they'd made a mistake, and send me back to scanning groceries. The first few months were surreal. I kept asking stupid questions, stayed late to fix bugs, and watched senior developers solve problems I didn't even know existed. I copied their habits, took notes, and slowly learned to translate their world into mine. Monica never treated me like a charity case. She gave me real work, real feedback, sometimes blunt enough to sting, but always followed with, "You can do better than this, and I know it." Slowly, my code broke less, and my confidence grew in the right places. A year passed. Junior became mid-level. Raises came. For the first time, my bank account wasn't constantly in emergency mode. Yet I stayed in that tiny studio. Partly because I was scared my streak of good luck would end. Partly because I'd gotten used to squeezing myself into small spaces. Then came the rent hike notice. My eyes widened at the numbers. Sitting at my little table, I ran the math, listing income and expenses, trying not to panic. That's when it hit me. What if instead of paying more for this shoebox, I put this money into something I actually owned? The idea felt like fantasy. Owning anything bigger than a thrift store couch. Impossible. But I couldn't shake it. I dove into financial education, podcasts on my commute, learning what a credit score really meant, what a down payment actually looked like in numbers, not just vague adult talk. And then the realization hit. I opened my online accounts, calculated side gigs, scrutinized every dollar I hadn't spent because I was scared. It wasn't riches, but it was enough to seriously start the conversation. I met with a loan officer. Pre-approval, interest rates, lending options. It felt like another language. But I kept asking questions until the numbers lined up in a way I could understand. He looked at my spreadsheet, my savings, my income, and said, "You're in much better position than most people your age." I thought about my parents telling me I was a burden, that I'd never grow if they didn't push me out. I didn't say it out loud, but the mental image of nailing this email to their old front door flashed in my mind. Weekends became house hunting expeditions. Some homes were far out of league, staged with fake families in brochures. Some were run down and depressing, reminding me too much of where I started. And then I found it. A narrow 3-story townhouse in Ballard. Not fancy enough for a magazine cover, but solid, clean lines, small backyard, and a little balcony off the master bedroom. Sunlight spilled through the living room windows just right, catching dust motes like glitter. The kitchen had enough counter space to cook real meals. Upstairs, a bonus room for an office, guest space, or whatever I wanted. I stood there, quiet, and for the first time since leaving my parents' house, felt what home could feel like, without anyone able to kick me out on a whim. Making the offer felt like playing a game I'd never been taught. Negotiations, counteroffers, paperwork. I leaned on my agent for guidance. Then came the call, accepted. I was at my desk at work, staring at a bug report, and had to step into the stairwell to catch my breath. The girl who once counted change to afford a motel room was about to put her name on a property deed. Closing day was surreal. Pen hit paper after paper, and each signature felt like a line separating me from that past. Every time the pen touched, I remembered. Kid sneaking grocery store sushi into her bedroom, cashier with aching feet, girl wrapping her life in blankets on the lawn while her family watched. The final folder slid away, and the woman across from me said, "Congratulations, homeowner." Walking in with keys that night was like stepping into a dream. Empty rooms, fresh paint, echoing possibilities. I lay on the living room floor with a single pillow and blanket, listening to the hum of the city outside, and realized, No one could tell me I was taking up too much space. This place had my name on it. Over the next months, I built life inside those walls. Bought a couch that didn't come off a curb. Set up a proper desk in the bonus room, called it my office. Hosted a few friends from work, cooked for them, laughed too loudly. Nobody complained. On clear nights, I'd stand on the balcony with a mug of tea, looking over the neighborhood, thinking about the path from roadside motel to here. I started sharing pieces of my story online. Not to rant about my parents, but to talk about getting kicked out, hitting bottom and clawing my way back. People responded. Strangers messaged saying they felt seen, that their own families had pushed them out in different ways. For the first time, my pain felt useful to someone other than me. For a while, I thought the story might end there. Kicked out on my birthday, fought my way up, bought a house, neat little arc. But life isn't a movie. And apparently, my parents didn't like being written out of my ending. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was in the kitchen, unpacking groceries, humming a little tune to myself. The kind of ordinary, peaceful moment you only notice after years of chaos. And then the doorbell rang. To tea first. I didn't think much of it. Maybe a package. Maybe a neighbor. I wiped my hands on a towel and walked to the door, glancing at the camera screen out of habit. And froze. Standing there was my past, my nightmare, my reality. Mother, father and Jenna. All three of them. Right on my porch. In the house I had built without them. For a second I thought it was a camera glitch. Mom in front, hair grayer, makeup heavier. Dad slouched behind her. Jenna off to the side, phone in hand. Smirk barely hidden. I could have pretended not to be home. Could have hidden, waited for them to go. But I'd done enough hiding. I opened the door. Mom looked me up and down, then passed me into the house. "Natalie, you look different," she said, eyes already inventorying the furniture. "What are you doing here?" I asked, steady but wary. Dad's soft voice. "Can we come in for a minute? It's important." Against better judgment, I stepped aside. They walked in like they owned the air, their confidence dripping over every surface. Mom ran her fingers along the couch. "This is nice. Much nicer than that little place you used to have." Jenna's glance around the living room was impressed despite herself. "Damn, Nat. You really got yourself a whole house." I stayed by the kitchen island. "Why are you here?" Dad sighed. "Things have been hard. I lost my job. The mortgage is killing us. We might lose the house." Mom added, almost casually. "The bank doesn't care how long we've been there. They just want money. We heard you bought a place. This changes everything." A flicker of sympathy passed through me. But it cooled fast. "I'm sorry things are rough. But what does that have to do with my home?" And then she said it. The phrase that dropped like a stone. "This isn't just your home. This is a family asset." "Excuse me," I said, voice rising. Mom gestured around the walls. "We raised you. Roof, food, clothes. We pushed you to be independent. If we hadn't kicked you out, you'd still be stuck in that dead-end grocery store. Our tough love made you who you are. So of course what you have now should benefit the whole family." Dad nodded. "We're not asking for much. We just need to stay here for a while. Your mom and I can take one room, Jenna another. You still have that office, right? You don't need a whole room just for a desk. Maybe we even put our names on the paperwork so the bank sees it as shared. It helps everyone." I almost laughed. "You kicked me out because you said there was no room. You needed my bedroom for Jenna's online classes. Now suddenly my house is the solution to all your problems." Mom snapped. "We did that for you. If we hadn't pushed you, you'd never have left. You should be grateful. This is our investment paying off. A family asset." Jenna chimed in. "Mom was right. You leveled up. Everyone I know moved out years ago. You have extra rooms. Why are you being so selfish?" There was the old word. Selfish. I took a deep breath. "I'm not selfish for living in the house I worked and paid for. You didn't co-sign anything. You're not on the deed. This is mine." Mom's eyes hardened. "You wouldn't have this job without us. We sacrificed. We struggled. We pushed you. You owe us. One signature from you and your parents aren't on the street." Or would you rather see us homeless while you sit here alone? The guilt pattern. The one that used to work on me. Only this time it made me tired that I straightened. You made your choices. Made mine. I'm not putting my home or my future at risk. You can pretend this is some group project if it helps you sleep at night. Jenna scoffed. Money really changed you. I shook my head. Being thrown out like trash on my birthday changed me. Money just means you can't do it again. Mom's voice dropped. If you don't help us, we'll take legal action. We're your parents. We have rights. Any judge will see this as a family asset. And you're hoarding it. For a second, old fear stirred. Then I remembered whose name was on every page that mattered. I stood firm. Talk to any lawyer you want. You're not moving in. You're not touching my house. And you need to leave now. Dad's last try. Natalie, please. We're your family. I opened the door wider. Cold light spilled in. You did this. Last time you told me to leave. This time, I'm the one asking you to go. Mom let out a bitter laugh and walked past me. Dad followed, staring at the floor. Jenna muttered, "You're going to regret this." Brushing by that, I locked the door. Hands shaking, but underneath the adrenaline. Steady calm, they had walked into my home, convinced one phrase, family asset, would be enough to scare me into giving up what I built. They still thought I was the girl with life in boxes on their lawn. This time they had no idea. I wasn't the one who needed to be afraid. I stood with my back against the locked door, breathing hard, listening to the echo of their threat. Legal action, family asset, parents' rights. The words repeated in my head like a bad commercial. Two versions of me existed in that moment. The old Natalie would have spiraled, Googling laws at 3 a.m., imagining worst-case scenarios, picturing my home being taken from me. But the new Natalie knew better than to let panic be the only plan. I called Eric Ramirez. We'd met years ago through a friend of a friend. He'd gone from bartending to law school, while I went from grocery store cashier to developer. He practiced civil law, working with tenants and financial disputes. Not best friends, but we trusted each other, had shared war stories about crappy landlords and terrible bosses. I texted, "Hey, I think my parents are about to try something crazy with my house. Do you have time to talk?" He called within the hour. I told him everything. Being kicked out on my birthday, their visit in my living room, Mom dropping the words family asset like grenades. Eric paused. "Okay, first of all, breathe. They're not on your deed, correct?" "Correct. I bought this house years after they threw me out. They didn't help with anything. It's in my name only." "Then legally, they have no ownership claim just because they share DNA," he said. "They can talk all they want about what's fair or family, but in court, paper beats guilt trips. However, the fact that they threatened legal action, trying to pressure you into adding them to the deed, that's sketchy as hell. And the way they kicked you out before. Not great optics for them." Then he asked a question that made my stomach drop. "You said you used to help them with paperwork and bills back when you lived there, right?" "Yeah. I was the only one who could navigate online forms without yelling at the computer." "Why?" "Because people who feel entitled to your house years later are often the same people who felt entitled to your information back then. Before we do anything else, pull your full credit report. Not the cute free app version, the real one. We need to make sure they haven't already been using you to prop themselves up financially." Memories hit me in a flash. Sitting at their kitchen table years ago, filling out credit card applications, Mom rushing me. "Just sign here. It's for the family." Too tired and trusting to ask questions. Now I saw those memories in a terrifying new light. That night I sat at my desk in my home office, the one they wanted to claim, and logged into all 3 major credit bureaus. I requested the reports. When they finally loaded, it felt like staring into someone else's life. I recognized my student loan from a single year of college, my auto loan and credit card accounts. But then came the accounts I'd never seen before. Store cards never used. A line of credit opened the year I got kicked out. A couple of small personal loans under my name, all linked to the address I'd once shared with my parents. My chest went cold that I called Eric back immediately. Told him what I was seeing. "That is identity theft," he said calmly. "At best, unauthorized use. At worst, outright fraud." If your parents open these in your name without your knowledge or consent, we're going to need to involve more than just a stern email. The next few weeks became a double life. By day I went to work, wrote code, sat in meetings, laughed with coworkers. By night, I sat at the dining table with Eric on speakerphone, gathering documents, highlighting dates, cross-checking addresses, piecing together a paper trail of how my parents quietly tried to turn my name into their safety net while calling me a burden to my face. With Eric's guidance, we filed formal disputes with the credit bureaus for the accounts I didn't open, contacted the banks and lenders, sending notarized letters and affidavits explaining that I had been kicked out and had no knowledge of these debts. Responses were mixed. Some institutions were cooperative. Others treated me like I was pulling a scam. Every time a customer service rep questioned my story, I imagined calling my parents and screaming, but I reminded myself, I wasn't cleaning up their mess for them. I was cleaning my name for me. The next step was a restraining order. While disputes with the banks moved forward, Eric helped me draft legal documentation to ensure my parents couldn't harass me, enter my property, or attempt any future family asset claims. Every clause, every notarized signature was another line of defense, a barricade around the life I'd built. I learned more about the law than I ever thought I would. Identity theft statutes, consumer protections, civil fraud claims, all became part of my vocabulary. I even found myself organizing evidence like a puzzle, connecting the dates they'd taken out credit lines in my name with the exact time I was working 2 jobs in a tiny studio just trying to survive. Weeks turned into a month. Slowly, the stress that had gripped me began to ease. Every verified account removed, every notarized letter acknowledged, felt like reclaiming a piece of my power. My name, my credit, my house. My life was finally mine, legally untouchable. The day we filed the final court notices, I remember sitting on the floor of my home office, staring at the pile of documents that represented not just months of work, but years of survival. I felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and triumph. I was no longer the girl in boxes on the lawn, no longer the underpaid cashier, no longer the target of family manipulation. Eric leaned back in his chair, smiling. They're done. Your house, your credit, your future, they can't touch it. They've been warned. Legally, you're untouchable. I closed my laptop and exhaled deeply. For the first time in years, I felt completely safe. Not just in my home but in myself. The fear that had followed me since my parents' porch had evaporated. I realized that boundaries weren't just emotional, they could be legal. And in my case, they were absolute. Looking back, I saw a clear trajectory. The girl kicked out on her birthday, scraping together a motel room. The woman who built a career from 2 jobs and endless nights of coding. The homeowner who stood up to entitled family members. And finally, the person who turned threats into legal protection. Every step, every late-night study session, every dollar saved, every moment I didn't beg for grace. It had led here. I could finally enjoy the quiet of my home without fear, knowing that no amount of guilt, manipulation, or family history could undo what I had built. For the first time, I understood the real meaning of independence. Not just earning money or buying a house, but having the power and legal authority to protect it, and myself, from anyone, even those who claimed to love me. Eric filed a request for a restraining order almost immediately. The basis was clear. My parents' threats, their history of kicking me out, and the messages they sent after that fateful visit. He included screenshots of texts Mom had sent. You'll regret choosing a house over your family. We'll make sure everyone knows how heartless you are. They thought these were guilt trips. In court, they looked like harassment. Eric turned to me before filing. You sure you want to go through with this? Once we file, it's official. This isn't just a family argument anymore. I thought about the girl I once was. Standing on the lawn, life in boxes, while my mother told me to figure it out. I thought about them walking into my house like they were entitled to it, asking me to sign away control without blinking. Yeah, I'm sure, I said. They didn't hesitate when they put me out. I'm done hesitating when it comes to protecting myself. The court granted a temporary order first. My parents were legally barred from coming to my house or workplace while the full hearing was scheduled. When the papers were served, my phone blew up. Mom left voicemails screaming about betrayal and shame. Dad sent long texts about how it could all be handled privately. Jenna sent one short, sharp message. "You really dragged the law into this? Dramatic much." I didn't respond. I forwarded everything to Eric, who added it to the file. But the escalation didn't stop there. Quietly, another piece moved into place. Some disputed accounts triggered internal reviews at the lender's side. One flagged unusual patterns. Another linked to a fake home improvement loan, taken out right before my parents' financial collapse. The file was escalated to a federal agency. Income records didn't match. Eric warned me. "This is where it might get bigger than you. If they've been playing games with taxes or using your identity to secure more credit, the IRS isn't going to shrug and walk away." Part of me felt uneasy. These were still my parents, as messed up as they were. The idea of them facing investigation made my stomach knot. But another part of me, the part that had sat counting crumpled bills in a roadside motel while their names stayed clean, felt a rush closer to justice than I had ever experienced. The process stretched over months. Forms, hearings, phone calls I lost count of, disputes, and documentation. Every night, I reviewed papers with Eric, highlighted dates, matched accounts to addresses. I wasn't cleaning up their mess for them. I was building armor for myself. Finally, the permanent restraining order hearing arrived. In court, my parents argued that I was overreacting. "Kids these days call everything abuse," they said. They insisted they were simply trying to teach responsibility. Under oath, with the documentation laid out, their story unraveled. They couldn't explain why open loans were tied to my social security number. They couldn't explain the threatening text messages. They couldn't spin the image of shoving their daughter out on her birthday into some noble sacrifice. The judge's decision was decisive. The order was granted, citing a clear pattern of emotional manipulation and financial exploitation. I watched my parents leave the courtroom looking smaller than I had ever seen them. But as Eric reminded me quietly, that was just round one. The second phase involved the IRS. Their quiet investigation, already underway, had flagged irregularities connected to some of the fraudulent loans and accounts opened in my name. I was called in, not as a suspect, but as a witness. My job: explain honestly what I knew and didn't know about these accounts and loans. I recounted everything. The forms I'd signed under pressure, the trust I'd placed in my parents, being cut out of their finances, being kicked out of their house, and the moment I finally stopped being convenient for them. I answered every question without hesitation. When I walked out of the federal building, it felt like opening a window that had been painted shut for years. The air felt lighter. For the first time in decades, I wasn't just reclaiming my home. I was reclaiming my name, my credit, my life. It was surreal to realize that the people who had once held total control over my sense of safety, space, and worth were now facing consequences that were entirely of their own making. The law wasn't a threat for me, it was justice. A tangible, immovable boundary that no guilt trip, emotional manipulation, or entitlement could cross. For months afterward, the legal process continued in smaller, quieter ways. Credit reports were corrected. Loans and accounts that had been fraudulently opened were closed. My parents' access to any financial leverage over me was gone. The restraining order became permanent, barring them from harassment, from entering my home, and from any attempt to claim control. Sitting in my office one evening, sipping tea on the balcony of my home, I let the weight of it all settle. The girl who had once counted pennies in a motel, the woman who had built a career from nothing, the homeowner standing firm against entitled family members. I was all of them at once. But now, finally, I was safe. Legally untouchable. Freed. It was a quiet triumph, one that felt bigger than money or property. It was the moment I understood that boundaries, when reinforced with knowledge and action, could protect not just what you own but who you are. And for anyone who had ever been told that love, family, or guilt could override your right to safety or dignity, it was proof that yes, you can reclaim your life. No one could manipulate me anymore. No one could threaten me with words like family asset and expect me to bow. I had built more than a home. I had built a fortress around my life, strengthened by law, principle, and unshakable self-respect. And just like that, The story that had begun with heartbreak on a birthday, with boxes on the lawn, ended not with fear, but with clear, undeniable justice. Eventually, letters started arriving at my parents' address and their new rental place. Notices, demands, investigations, unpaid taxes, unreported income, fraudulent applications. Everything they had tried to build, everything they had tried to pin on me, began to crumble under the weight of their own choices. The irony didn't escape me. Their old house, the one they had thrown me out of to make space for Jenna, was seized and sold to cover part of what they owed. That fortress, their symbol of superiority, now gone because of their own actions, without the house, without good credit, without the steady job Dad had lost years ago, their options shrank fast. They moved into smaller and smaller apartments, constantly struggling to keep up with bills. Mom, who had once bragged online about the perfect family, retreated to vague Facebook posts about ungrateful children and corrupt systems, never admitting what had actually happened. Dad picked up odd jobs wherever he could, swallowing pride every time he had to take something beneath him, and Jenna, once the sibling who sneered at me for working in a grocery store, ended up folding clothes in a retail chain by day and doing delivery app runs by night, complaining online about how the world was unfair. I knew all of this not because I stalked them, but because people sent screenshots asking quietly, "Is this about you?" I never answered publicly. Instead, I told my story in my own words, without naming them, but without hiding the truth either. I talked about parents who weaponize guilt, families who feel entitled to adult children's success while never owning the harm they caused. About being kicked out on my birthday, sleeping in a motel, and learning to separate love from loyalty to people who kept hurting me. The more I shared, the more I heard from others who had lived variations of the same script. I wasn't special, and in a strange way, that was comforting. I wasn't alone. Months after the legal settlement, I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, when another email from a lender popped in. "We have completed our investigation. We have determined that you are not responsible for the debts in question. These accounts will be removed from your credit report." I stared at the words. My name, the one they had signed on forms like it was theirs to use, was finally clean. The house was safe. The future, entirely mine. I thought back to Mom standing in this very kitchen, declaring my home a family asset. In a way she had been right, but not in the way she had meant. The house really was a family asset. Just not the family they expected. Their story ended in courtrooms, collections notices, and small apartments. Mine was just beginning. For the first time, the scales felt even. They had pushed me out, used me, and tried to claim what I built. And in the end, all they really did was give me distance and motivation to build a life they couldn't touch. I started to realize something uncomfortable. Winning doesn't bring back what you never had. There would be no tearful apologies. No neat reconciliation. They kept telling anyone who would listen that I had ruined their lives, that I chose a house over family. I used to replay those accusations in my head, wondering if there was any version of the story where I could have helped them without destroying myself. Every time I walked through my front door, dropped my keys in the bowl by the entryway, I felt the solid weight of my own safety. I knew the answer. They had spent years teaching me that love meant sacrificing myself for their comfort. Cutting them off was the first lesson I ever wrote for myself. Life began to fill with new kinds of people. Co-workers who checked on me when I looked tired, neighbors who brought cookies when I shoveled their sidewalk, friends who crashed on the couch. Not because I had been kicked out, but because we stayed up too late laughing to bother driving home. I hosted a small Wednesday night group at the dining table. A mismatched circle of people with their own stories of families who hurt them more than they helped. We didn't sit around bashing parents. We compared notes on boundaries, therapy, savings accounts, and the first time each of us realized we were allowed to say no without providing a full essay of reasons. The house became exactly what my parents had claimed it could be. Not a family asset for them, but a safe place for people to land, rest, and then launch again on their own terms, sometimes late at night. I would stand in the doorway of the spare room they had wanted for themselves. I'd look at the neatly made bed, the shelf of books, the desk where I sometimes wrote. Two timelines overlapped in my mind. In one, my parents were there, slamming doors, complaining, turning the home into another place I tiptoed through. In the one I chose, the room stayed open, available for me, Or for anyone else who needed proof that starting over was possible, I won't pretend it's easy to choose yourself over your family. There are still holidays when it stings, scrolling past pictures of big smiling families around long tables. But I've learned, blood is not a free pass to hurt you over and over. Being related doesn't give someone automatic rights to your time, your money, or your home. Love without respect is just control dressed up in prettier words. I don't thank my parents for cruelty or lies. But I can admit this. The day they threw me out on my birthday was the day I stopped living in their story and started writing my own. If you're listening, and you recognize pieces of your life in mine, I want you to know, you're not crazy. You're not ungrateful. You're not alone. You're allowed to protect yourself. You're allowed to build a life. And the people who hurt you are not allowed to enter it. They once said, "This house is a family asset." They were right about one thing. It is about family. Not the family who rejected me, but the chosen family I built. The safe community I created. The home that welcomed healing. The home that belongs to me and to the people I love. This is my story. From birthday betrayal to survival, from career to homeownership, from threats to legal vindication, and finally to a life of empowerment. And if there's one thing I hope anyone takes away, sometimes protecting yourself and choosing your own path isn't just necessary. It's the most loving thing you can do.